All right, we are live here for the first time ever on the Dynasty Warzone YouTube channel. It is your boy Memphis at DFF Memphis recording a contractor for the Dynasty Happy Hour. Now, all of this will stream live on the Dynasty Warzone feed. Don't ask me when. I'll do a better job of tweeting them out going forward. But tonight I have a guest. We're just going live. This is a little bit different than I normally do the contractor, but I promised a YouTube video this weekend, even though last weekend it was the shits. I'm bringing him back, man. It's my buddy. He is one of our Patreons. His name is Nick. Nick, welcome to the Dynasty Warzone Patreon.
Hey,
hold on,
to be on.
Well, I guess I can't edit this except on the podcast version. Let me try that again. Nick, welcome to the Dynasty Happy Hour Contractor. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Little scatterbrained. This is why I didn't post the first video, but you have to start somewhere. The audio I feel like will be better. I'm using my normal mic setup and computer here in the basement where I have created a makeshift podcast studio, but the world is demanding more YouTube, and a lot of people enjoy YouTube. I know my son does. So thank you for being the guinea pig on the very first show.
Happy to be here, and guinea pig all the way.
Guinea pig indeed. So, man, how long have you been playing Dynasty?
Going on a little over 10 years now, playing Dynasty, all different formats.
Yeah, you can tell because you have ventured into what I would like to refer to as the black arts of Dynasty fantasy football, and that this is IDP. The only thing that could be more scary is a good friend of the show, the Dynasty Warzone, Shane Hallam. He was trying to rope me into a 75 or 80 man roster. It was like one of those campus to Canton deals where it would have been full IDP, double tight end premium, must start 2 tight ends, 10 defensive players, 10 offensive players, full Devy. I'm like, no.
I haven't dipped my toe into Devy. I know you and I talked about that right when I joined, and I don't know enough about it, and I feel like it would take over my life.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. You can only serve so many masters in life. And between trying to be a good dad and husband as we record this on Father's Day and trying to be an exceptional employee to my company, there's only so many hours in a day. And obviously I want to be good at the Dynasty content. So I really save the Debbie stuff. Now I do have one league, the old Herm Edwards rule of one. I have one IDP league, and never should, what they say in Ghostbusters, don't cross streams. There will be no crossing of streams, sir. So we're going to jump into this thing. This is IDP. Let's see. My next question is, what's the scoring format besides IDP? But let me ask you this. Let me get to the IDP first. Is the IDP very linebacker heavy, or is it more evenly spread?
Tackle for losses are a huge thing. So D tackles are a lot more valuable than as you can see the cornerbacks are, because they don't get any special premium or anything like that. Tackle for loss. So you can kind of stack points going that way. Okay.
And then the offensive scoring format, it's 1 QB. Yep. I've got that part down. 10 or 12. I'm sorry, this is your 14 team league.
Yeah, I'm the commissioner for this league.
And is it full point PPR? Is it tight end premium at all?
No tight end premium, half point PPR, -4 for interceptions.
Now, I would assume you do play in full point PPR leagues.
Oh yeah. I prefer that, but
okay. That was going to be my question. Was I'm starting to see, as I'm helping more people with this, I'm seeing more and more people with half point PPR. I've got one league that way. I'm fine with it. It really neutralizes that Tariq Cohen type running back of the world, a guy that James White, another guy that I've leaned heavily on over the years. So I just wanted to get your input on that. What's the activity of this league like, man? Now you're the commissioner. I'm hoping you're keeping this thing going.
Oh yeah. So this actually was a rebuild of an additional league that fell apart because we've had owners leaving. So I actually had to. This is our second year, so I actually had to replace an owner already. So we have a group chat on Facebook. We have text messages, so it's a lot, pretty active. Probably trades at least a couple times a week. So lots of active guys, especially now. They kind of wanted to get everything moving a lot quicker, so now it's a little lull, like I told them it would be. But you can only tell them so many things. It's a lot of first-time dynasty players in this league.
Well, a lot of activity is a good thing. And one thing that I've always prided myself on is being that catalyst. That if I have a group chat that's gone stale for too long, I'll just throw something out. I'll throw out a tweet. I did this in one of my leagues, quote unquote, an industry league. And I threw out the Kareem Hunt news that he had been attending the Zoom calls with wide receivers that came out this week. And I'll throw his name out there, JP Hurley from the Dynasty Trade Calculator. He was like, giving me a hard time for doing it. And I was like, A, I'm not too good to use a hype piece to try to sell a player. And B, I'm just trying to stir this thing up. And we've actually had about 4 days of good chat in there. Part of it had to do with the Scott Fish Bowl and donations. And for those listening that aren't in the Scott Fish Bowl or don't know what it is, A, it's the world's largest fantasy football tournament that I know of. This year, it's 1,440 players. It raises a crap ton of money. And this year, now in the past, all of the money raised had went to Fantasy Cares, which is a great charity that Scott basically created a couple of years ago. And all the money, all the money goes, at least used to go toward raising money for Toys for Tots for kids at Christmas, which is awesome. But this year, Scott was like, just donate to what you're passionate about. And man, I thought that was cool. Now, one of our Patreons made a donation, which we forwarded along to Sal Lito over at the Scott Fish Bowl Podathon. And then Jerry and I are going to appear on the Podathon for the Dynasty Warzone. So we donated as well. And then my personal individual donation was to Some Assembly Required. It's an adaptive strength athlete team. A lot of ex-military soldiers, men and women, who have lost some kind of an appendage, and they are learning how to use weights and exercise adaptively. So that was my donation because I'm big into working out and fitness, and I thought that was cool. So anything that you can do, man, to keep the group chat going. It could be local news. It could be whatever. I think it's great. And now, have you guys ever used the Facebook Live feature on this particular thing?
Yes, I did. We did that for the initial bingo ball hopper to choose draft order. I did Facebook Live that way. It was I never did it before, so it was nice because then you can go back to it for the people that weren't a part of it and just show that it was nothing was finagled or anything like that for draft order.
Yeah, I think that's great because that's something that I will wind up doing here. So on the Dynasty Warzone feed, I don't know how we're giving it away because it's a joint venture between the Dynasty Warzone crew and the Fantasy Smackdown crew, which is my buddy Kyle at Kyle FF Fellas. We're going to be giving away an autographed DK Metcalf jersey. So however we do it, I'll get Kyle on a YouTube live and I don't know if we got to write everybody's name on a ping pong ball and put it to a hopper and draw them out in my basement. My wife will love it. Why are you buying 50 ping pong balls? Where's my black Sharpie? I don't know.
The name of fantasy football.
I don't know, babe. I haven't seen it. No clue. So lots of good stuff going on. We talked about the group chat. Why are you looking for the help of the contractor?
So this isn't like a normal keep everybody dynasty league. So I know when I first joined, me and you had a phone conversation. I was telling you a little bit about it, where you keep 6 players, 1 franchise player, and then we roll a dice and you lose one of those players. And then the rest of your offense goes into free agency. IDP, you keep 4 defensive players, and any rookie you drafted, traded for, and didn't start that season automatically goes to your roster for forever until you start them or trade them. So we have a max of 40. So it's kind of playing with fire, so to speak, because you can't really load every single year because you don't know who you could possibly lose. Like I lost Julio last year, and that was my biggest kick because I couldn't afford him because I lost in the championship.
Gotcha. So this kind of reminds me. Are you familiar with John Bosch?
No.
He does Dynasty Game Night. He runs the FC, the Fantasy Cares Eliminators. You might see a lot of those on Twitter. He does some unique stuff like this, and I think this is a fascinating format. In this league, you still have your rookie draft to go.
Yep.
Okay. So let's just start running down this roster. Now, this is a 1 QB. You've got Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz. How are you feeling about your quarterback room? Now, as a Patreon, you know I love Carson Wentz. How do you feel, though?
I'm a closet Sam Darnold fan. Not many of us out there, but for a backup quarterback, I'm fine with it just because of how he looked at times last year. I don't see him dropping anywhere, and with Carson Wentz getting hurt, I think I'm fine right now in a one quarterback league. I don't have to stretch or anything like that to overpay for anybody else at this time, unless Carson Wentz something crazy happens to him.
At least with Sam Darnold, you know he's going to get one more year because he's going to continue to get the benefit of the doubt that if anything happens this year, it's going to be Adam Gase's fault. It's not going to be Sam Darnold's fault. He's going to get the pass that I don't think a guy like Baker will. I think there's going to be a lot of heat on Baker next year if he both performs poorly and that team misses the playoffs. Now, that's my bold take. So I'm up to 2 bold takes on the season for 2020. My second bold take of the year is that Baker Mayfield will finish dead last in the AFC North in fantasy points, but the Browns will make the playoffs. I think you're going to see a very Minnesota-esque run the ball, and play some really good defense. There's a lot of talent on that team, and that's what Sam Darnold doesn't have. Sam Darnold is not surrounded by Odell Beckham Jr., and he's not surrounded by Landry and Hooper and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Oh, by the way, everybody I just mentioned was a Pro Bowler at one time. Jack Conklin, the new right tackle, pretty sure he was a Pro Bowler, a top 10 rookie pick in Jedrick Wills. So he should have no reason why he can't have a satisfactory season. Again, I don't think he needs Peyton Manning in his prime numbers to get out of the season but he definitely needs to win a football game. So we'll see how that goes. As it relates to Darnold, man, he'll be fine. Even if his value will continue to hold, because I just think we like him more than we like Baker. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's a good kid. We like him because he's younger than Joe Burrow, if I remember correctly. If not, they're real close to the same age. So he's going to get a pass. And then the other ginger on this team, Carson Wentz, is a personal favorite. It's just weird how fickle and how short-sighted that the dynasty world is. And I think part of that has to do with the ADD culture that we live in with our smartphones and what have you done for me lately? What's the new big thing? And we forget that just a couple of years ago, in his second year in the league, that Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he would have won it if he wouldn't have got hurt.
I believe that is correct. Now, I can't guarantee that they would have won the Super Bowl, but for Nick Foles, it's weird. The further he gets away from that Super Bowl, the more of a pass he gets. Mm-hmm. He is now on his 6th stint with it's his 6th stint in 9 years on 5 different teams because he was with Philly twice. He was winless last year and had an INT to touchdown ratio of 2-3, 3 TDs and 2 interceptions. He got hurt to start the season. They brought him back, and he did not play well, and they benched him for Gardner. So it's weird that we continue to give some guys a pass. So I think both of these guys are going to have their challenges, but I think they're perfect for you. I think Wentz is going to give you a top 8 quarterback floor with a top 3 quarterback ceiling. It's going to come down to how that defense plays. And he looked pretty good last year with less than stellar components around him in Philadelphia. So I believe that with the addition of Rager, a healthy Zach Ertz, Goddard coming back, Alshon, maybe. And I know there's some worry about him starting the season on the pup. Deshaun Jackson. They added Marquise Goodwin. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as to say Wentz is working with what Baker's working with, but he's certainly working with better pieces than he moved last year. So in a 1 QB league, I'm fine. What you could do is you can go see if Andy Dalton is available on the waiver wire, and you can have the holy trinity of ginger quarterbacks in the NFL.
He's gone.
Oh, it's too bad. It's too bad.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm joking, but I'm also halfway serious in that Andy Dalton is someone that I'm looking at. So if Dak, so it's been said, so we're recording this live on Father's Day Eve, that Dak is going to sign his franchise tender tomorrow. That would be Monday the 22nd as you and I talk when we're recording this. But if Dak does not sign a long-term deal by July 15th, so just about 3.5 weeks, they would then either have to negotiate a contract from the time the year ends and the start of free agency, or they have to franchise tag him again, thereabouts. I'm generalizing. So right now they're paying him like $31.7 million, something like that. If they have to franchise Dak again, that would be like almost $40 million. Dallas barely has $40 million of cap room next year. You wouldn't be able to bring any free agents in. And I think Dak could be low-key trying to Kirk Cousins his way out of town. And if he doesn't play well this year, which I firmly believe that he will play well this year, but it does not take a strange chain of events to have Andy Dalton as an, out of nowhere starter in 2021 for the Dallas Cowboys. So I was half joking about the Ginger trilogy, but if you can find him out there cheap, or if someone will throw him in the back end of a deal in a super flex with this kind of a league, I wouldn't. I'd move on. Running backs. You have a guy that I love as a stash on the back end of your roster, Rodney Anderson. We'll get into him. Man, this is like the injury away team. You've got Chase Edmonds, Damian Harris, Ronald Jones, Latavius Murray, Chris Thompson. I don't see any aces or deuces, but I see a couple of RB3s floating around back here.
The whole reason why I picked up Damian Harris was since I joined the Patreon a couple times. You talked about him, and I was like, well, $5, why not? What's the worst that could happen? I have an atrocious running back committee right now, so can't make it any worse.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about your rookie draft, which has not happened in this league here in just a bit. Now, I like Rodney Anderson. Your boy Joe Mixon has used the H word. He has said hold out. Yep. Now, he's not gone as far as to ask for $16 to $13 million like Dalvin Cook, but we'll see how this shakes out for him. Chase Edmonds looked great in this offense. I think anybody with a receiving game pulse would look great in this Cliff Kingsbury offense. He got hurt last year. They brought in Kenyon Drake. But Kenyon Drake, I think, is making $8 million. And let's be honest, Kenyon Drake's never shouldered the load for an entire year for an NFL team. If you go back and look at his touches over his career, I don't think he's ever had more than 200, if I remember correctly. So if Chase Edmonds were to get mixed in, that's going to be a pretty potent, high-power offense. That might be a low-key, what I like to call double trouble backfield, where two guys could have a little bit of value. And I'll save my man crush, Damian Harris, for here to zero. Ronald Jones, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And here's why. I know a lot of people, Ronald Jones is very polarizing on Twitter for social media, and I get why. Extremely talented guy, but my biggest fear with him is that he's not a good pass blocker. And if you're not a good pass blocker with Tom Brady and you get him whacked one time, you're done.
Yeah.
That's my only concern with him. Don't get me wrong. I also think he's not a very good pass catcher. I know people will argue in this stat and that, but through 2 years in the league, I've not seen the pass catching profile that I would like to see. Latavius Murray. Now, if that other guy in New Orleans happens to say the H word, you could be in business. Might give you a nice little flip potential. And then Chris Thompson. I know people like him because he's attached to current offensive coordinator Jay Gruden. I mean, I guess the 3 games he's healthy, maybe he does something. I still believe that's Leonard Fournette's team. Last guy, Damian Harris. Yeah, you brought it up, man. Third round draft capital. I basically considered last year a red shirt. Tom Brady does not play well with rookies. Ask N'Keal Harry. We're going to talk about him in just a second.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to want to give this kid a chance to shine. What is this, the third year for Sony Michel?
Yep.
This very well, I mean, at this point, I think it's easy to say the Patriots are not picking up his fifth-year option. James White's going to be mixed in the passing game. I don't know what Rex Burkhead will do. And for that reason, based on his cost, I don't mind Damian Harris. You kind of need a break here on this team. So what draft? Let's go ahead and skip to the draft picks because we've got to paint a little bit of a picture for the listener. What's the plan moving forward with this running back room in your draft picks?
So I'm the high bidder on Dari Ogunabowale. So he's just another one that I was trying to get. I got for $5, but I got the 102. So I'm planning on going after JT because I'm pretty sure that Clyde Edwards is going to be gone. So I was actually trying to trade back from the 102 to try to get to the 4 or the 5 to possibly snag Dobbins, but no one wants to move. So that's kind of what my thought process is to hold on Jonathan Taylor because obviously he's not right off the bat. He's not going to be the lead dog or anything like that. Marlon Mack's going to be there. So got to be patient with him. And I kind of want Vaughn, but I kind of don't because of Brady's shelf life there. And I don't know exactly what that running back backfield's going to look like. I don't want to have to do a draft pick just to handcuff somebody that could possibly be non-existent in the next 2 years.
Okay. The reason why I bring that up is because I like Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he'll have use early this year. Keyshawn Vaughn is my classic pump and dump player. He's not special in any way. The only thing special about him is his landing spot. And that landing spot, I think he could be this year's Miles Sanders. Hold on a second. Don't wreck your car. Don't throw yourself into a piece of machinery at work. What I mean is he's a guy that's probably going to get off to a little bit of a slower start because of the COVID and the rookie season and lack of reps with the offense. We don't know what training camp's going to be. But I do believe that as the season wears on, he's an older rookie. I think he's 23. Mm-hmm. I think he's someone that both head coach Bruce Arians and Tom Brady will like. And he's the kind of guy who's going to play real well down the last 8 weeks of the season. And he'll be much more featured as a runner. He's a really good pass blocker from everything I've read in his scouting portfolio. So I think for those reasons, I think when your boy Darway, Agumbawale are on the field, it's kind of like what they did with the Patriots. If Sony was on the field, they're kind of saying, hey, we're going to run the ball. If James White or Darway's on the field, you're saying, hey, we're going to rush the ball. I mean, we're going to pass the ball. But if it's a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn, he really reminds me of if Peyton Barber was like the Walmart brand, and then Keyshawn Vaughn's like Pepsi. He's like Mountain Thunder or whatever it is, and he's the real McCoy. I think he's just a little bit better. Neither one of them are good for you long term, by the way, but it's just enough to get you by. So he's a guy that if you do wind up with Keyshawn Vaughn, I think he's the kind of guy that will have even more steam on him this time next year, and that will be a great time to unload him. You used him. He bridged you to 2021. My only concern is that as of today, I don't get that vibe out of the 2021 running back class that I did out of this year's running back class. I know there's Chuba, and I'm drawing a couple of blanks here, but it's not like last year's class where we all knew Akers and Swift and Dobbins and Edwards-Helaire popped out of nowhere and Jonathan Taylor's stock continued to rise all off season. I don't know that those guys won't appear over the course of a season. Oh, Travis Etienne, pretty darn good at football, by the way. I know that much about college football. He's really good. But yeah, you're definitely going to have to work on this running back room. But you do have pieces at wide receiver if you needed to move them. So you got Chris Godwin, N'Keal Harry, Keyshawn Johnson, the one in Arizona, not the one who wrote the book. not the one who wrote the book, Give Me the Damn Ball.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen, Anthony Miller, Marquez, Valdez, Scantling. I want to talk about two guys, but I want to talk about Thielen and Anthony Miller. But how are you feeling about this running back room?
So Chris Godwin's obviously my golden goose. I've been on the Chris Godwin train since his rookie year, so I'm glad to see it finally paid off for me. I have a lot invested in him. I've been getting trade offers. I tried to get Calvin Ridley, but obviously Calvin Ridley is going to cost a pretty penny. So I tried initially to move Adam Thielen in a first for Calvin Ridley, and no one bid on that. Just because obviously he's not guaranteed to keep all these players for the reason how we do our franchise or how we do our dynasty league. I know Adam Thielen without Diggs there is going to obviously get the targets. Anthony Miller, second half of the season came on pretty strong, so glad I still have him. But I'm unsure on N'Keal Harry, not for him in particular, just to see what he does with a full season, because him and Stidham, obviously you've said numerous times they were the twos together, so they got a lot of rhythm together. So I'm hoping that pays off, and I could possibly package him on a deal to get a running back or something like that.
Yeah, I do like Harry. Just again, it goes back to that offense, and I don't know because I don't know. Tom Brady's been in New England for 20 years, and now he's gone. But I do know that over the last half decade, every time that I've watched Patriots football, which even if you don't live in Boston, they're crammed down your throat, whatever the maximum number of primetime games they can get a year is. So you see a lot of it. Tom Brady just does not feature rookies for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's an outlier and someone will at me and say, but Memphis, what about so-and-so? Yeah, I missed him. The two guys I want to talk about are Adam Thielen and Anthony Miller in that black and blue NFC North division. Now, Adam Thielen, is just 2 years removed from tying Calvin Johnson's record for consecutive 100-yard games in a row. I think it was 8 or 9. I think 9 would have broken, 8 tied. Does that sound somewhere in the neighborhood? And, he had a hamstring and an ankle last year. He only played 10 total games in the playoffs. But if you're a contender, this is the one that you just have to monitor the situation. If you're a contender and he's doing what I think he will do, you will have a nice 1-2 punch with him and Chris Godwin. It's just going to be great. But the third guy, even though it's if this was full point PPR, I would really love Anthony Miller, but I really love Anthony Miller. He looked great down the stretch last year. They did not bring back Taylor Gabriel. And in 2 wide receiver sets, I don't think this guy leaves the field. I think it's him and Allen Robinson. I think you'll see formations with him in the slot and Tariq Cohen out wide, and you're going to see some interesting formations. And I think this Chicago offense is one that I'm still low-key buying into. I know everybody hates Mitch Trubisky. I believe Mitch Trubisky will be the starter. I mentioned Foles earlier. He did not set the world on fire. Never really has, but that guy gets so much credit for winning that Super Bowl. And he should. That man should never buy a beer again in the state of Pennsylvania. And they should be building statues of him in Philadelphia. But I just don't think he's any good. I mean, he's, 31, 32 years old? I'm sorry, he's not the answer. I don't think Mitch is great. I think Mitch is limited. But a lot of what Miller did last year was with Mitch, and I think this lit a fire under Mitch's ass. He said publicly this past week that, he didn't deserve to have his 5th-year option picked up. And I kind of like it. I just hope that they're going to maximize this offense. Matt Nagy gets a lot of credit for being a quote-unquote offensive genius. But, I mean, I got a lot of air quotes going on. I don't know if it's because I'm on camera. I'm like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know. But I do know that I do low-key like this Bears offense. I think it will be better. I think the defense will be better in what I believe is year number 2 under Chuck Pagano. Not a good head coach, but a good defensive coach. And I do believe that the Bears defense will be a lot better. And when the defense is a lot better, I think the defense will put this offense back in a lot of short fields. They'll create turnovers. And so for a guy like Anthony Miller, man, that stock up. The one thing that you could do is try to move Adam Thielen for a veteran running back of equal level. The problem is that I feel like that's your biggest advantage right now. is in a 14-team league where you lost Julio. I would hate to have to give up Thielen, but that's a call for you to have to make in season.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could. This is going to be a team with a young running back core. You're going to have to quote unquote manufacture wins. You're going to have to play matchups perfectly. You're just going to have to get just right, and you're also going to have to be smart enough to know when to punt and say, "Hey, man, I just can't do it this season. I'm better off packing it up and packing it in, and playing for 2021."
Yeah, that's why I was trying to accumulate as many picks this year as I could to get what I could. I think I have 16 or 17 draft picks.
With this roster, man, I would be looking at around like week 4, week 5. You're going to kind of have a feel of what everybody is. Maybe Damian Harris is a steal. Maybe there's an injury in front of you. Maybe a guy like Mixon or Kamara held out, and you can really, get some really solid production. But even that's fleeting. You could be riding Latavius for 4 games, and then in comes, Kamara fresh off a holdout. And by the time the playoffs roll around, yeah, you made the playoffs, you limped in. But one of the big horses you were riding is now riding the bench while the young hotness and Alvin Kamara is getting all the fantasy points.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful with that. But I do love your tight end room. You have the very productive, though often injured, Evan Ingram, a guy that I absolutely love in Irv Smith Jr., and one of the most intriguing mystery boxes of the 2020 season at the tight end position, Ian Thomas.
Yep.
So what would you want to do here? I don't think you're going to be able to package anything up to go get a Kittle or anything like that. But
I actually just moved Kelsey for Ingram and some draft picks. So I got 2 seconds, a third, and Evan Ingram for Travis Kelsey. Just because I knew I wasn't playing for a chip this year, and I'd rather get the highest value I could for Kelsey at that time.
Okay, well, I don't know that was the highest value, but if Evan Ingram can repeat what he did as a rookie, and he can just stay healthy, and if you hit on, so you got 2 seconds and a third.
Yeah, I believe 2 high seconds and a third.
Oh, okay, well, if it's a lot of ifs, what they say, if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle.
Yep.
But if he could stay healthy and you hit on one of those 2 draft picks, you'll like that in the long run. I mean, Travis Kelsey's 32 years old, and they're going to owe him a lot of money in 2021. I think that they owe him about $9 million, and I believe 0 of that's guaranteed. Now, I'm not saying they're going to cut Travis Kelsey, but it's the old possible versus probable. Is it possible? Sure. Anything's possible. Is it probable? Probably not. But to go from a guy who's in his early 30s to a guy who's in his mid-20s that has flashed, you just need some consistency. And I love that offense in New York. I mean, is it a stretch to say that outside of Saquon Barkley, he's the best offensive player from a skill position standpoint on the Giants?
I don't think so. They're a track field too. They're all fast.
And I think we all like Darius Slayton this year. I think we're all thinking that he takes a step. But if everything's, equal, that, and they brought in the Clapper. Jason Garrett's the head coach there. Did you ever see Jason Garrett when he was clapping in Dallas? Did you ever see him feed Jason Witten?
Exactly.
Yeah. Fed him till he popped. He came out of the booth and had a fairly productive year, in his mid-30s. So with Daniel Jones and what I'd like to consider an ascending offense, now not to the level of Kansas City, but an offense I still like, that's good. One of these other 2 young guys, though, so what you need is you need to catch a break. You need all 3 of these guys to be good and the ability to move one for more future picks down the road.
Yeah, because I love Irv Smith, and half my league's like, who? I'm like, just wait. Wait.
That's one of the downsides of not being in even though they're into it, like from a group chat standpoint, doesn't mean that they're into it.
Yeah.
Outside of the most active degenerate out there, most people couldn't pick Irv Smith out of a lineup. And Kyle Rudolph's still there.
Yeah.
So you may not have much flippable. I'm not going to get into the special teams, the defense, and that's not really what the people are here. So do you have your draft picks pulled up in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, so you have the 102. I have no problem with JT. If you add JT to this team, yes, it's going to be slow going, but this is a dynasty roster, not a redraft roster. And I firmly believe that by the time the season gets rolling, that JT will only continue to ascend. And I think this is a team. So for those that are new to the contractor, on the Dynasty Warzone, we've been previewing teams 3 at a time. I believe it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago we did the Colts. And the Colts were top 5 last year in rushing attempts. I think it was 471, if I remember correctly. That's more than enough to go around for both JT and Marlon Mack. So I don't think you have to worry too much about him eventually getting his share. So you have the 102. I like the JT pick. That's Jonathan Taylor for maybe someone who's missing the abbreviation there. And what other picks do you have?
So I got the 113. So my plan was if take best receiver there. I know Rager won't be there. So I'm hoping that either T. Higgins is there or either one of the other wide receivers. I don't think I would take Denzel Mims. I thought about even possibly trading back there because I have the 201 as well.
Okay. Well, I don't think that you can go wrong with maybe trading for a veteran running back as well. The player that you're going to get at 113 is not going to make an impact.
No.
Now, let me ask you this, because if these guys don't know who Herb Smith is, they're probably not very in tune to what they want to do with certain players in a rookie draft. I'm trying to make sure I phrase this correctly. So I don't know that they will understand the value of the 113. So I think you're just going to have to make a decision there.
Yeah, because I don't think Pittman's going to be there for me either, just from some of the other drafts I've done.
Pittman's going to be close, even with the non-quarterback. Now, do you think any of these guys would be crazy enough to take a quarterback in the top 12?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think there possibly could be Tua and Burrow both going because the year before we started this, we did our rookie draft separate, and the 1-1 Kyler Murray went first overall instead of Josh Jacobs, and that fell to me.
Well, that's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to continue to remember that, hey, we're going to do this, and you got to be careful when you bust these guys out of bubble wrap, because once they come out of their shell, for lack of a better term, you lose that ability to protection, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so then you have the 113, then the 114 goes. So then you have 2 out of 3 picks.
Yep, I have the 201, 204, and 206.
Oh, wow. So you're going to be –
and the 211 and the 213.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good thing, because there are some running backs in the middle of this draft that, even though it would be quote-unquote a reach for you, but due to this unique format of this league, since you can only keep and protect so many guys, I think that's when you need to start looking at guys like Darrington Evans, guys like Anthony McFarland, Antonio Gibson, Josh Kelly, especially Josh Kelly. You know, we've covered this multiple times on the Dynasty Warzone since the NFL draft, that Josh Kelly is more like Melvin Gordon than anyone else currently on the roster in LA with the Chargers. Justin Jackson's much more like Austin Eckler than he ever was Melvin Gordon. And I really see Josh Kelly. He could be that from the 20 in guy, from the 20 to the goal line. And I also believe that you could see him and Austin Eckler on the field at the same time. So for a roster that really needs some oomph at the wide receiver position, especially if you're trying to compete, that's the way to go about it. And I love Darrington Evans. He's a guy that I think he's going to pop. I think he's going to pop sooner rather than later. I think Tennessee is not going to be quite as good in the actual NFL this year. They can still put up plenty of stats for fantasy. But as game scripts change for the Tennessee Titans, they're going to need more work in the passing game. And I really want to see how they're able to use this kid, Darrington Evans, in the passing game. I think that would be bananas. So those would be some of the targets I would look at.
Okay.
For sure. And then Anthony McFarland, I feel like he's another one of those guys that's an injury away. And when the guy in front of you that you're an injury away from is James Conner, you're not that far away.
No.
You're really not. So all in all, man, I think this is a middling team. The one thing that will caution you on is we say this on the Patreon, and I can't curse because I don't want to curse too much on the Dynasty Happy Hour feed. I don't know what kind of rating they carry over here. But don't let pride start messing with you. It's a quote that I've used before from Pulp Fiction, the classic movie, where Marcellus Wallace tells him that's just pride messing with you. Don't let pride go messing with you. You're a smart guy, and you can always ask me because you're in the Patreon. If you think this thing's taking a turn for the worse, all you got to do is say, hey, man, what do you think? And I don't think it's tanking as long as you set a roster every week. Mm-hmm. If you never remember to replace an injured player, if you never forget to cover a bye week player, and you field an active, healthy roster every week that does something, fine. Now, if you were to have, say you did pick up Andy Dalton, like we joked about earlier, and you played him knowing he was a backup, and that's borderline. But if you played Sam Darnold over Carson Wentz, you played a guy who's starting over a guy who's starting. If you played N'Keal Harry over Chris Godwin, you played a guy who's starting, who should put up some kind of a point score. Are you taking? Kinda. But are you cheating? I don't think so. Maybe some people listening will push back, and that's my thing. I just don't be afraid to pack it in too soon.
Yeah, well, we do the NBA lottery style for draft picks too, so it's not so much for tanking, but we do loser bracket. If you end up winning your loser bracket, you get extra bingo balls, and you could trade those bingo balls. So it's kind of still something for people to play for, in essence. So I can only have 40 roster spots, and I have 17 draft picks. So that currently what I have is 30 players. Who would you recommend getting rid of that I have currently?
Well, knowing limited on the offensive side of the ball, I would refer you to my buddy Oklahoma. He's part of he used to be at the DFF like I was many years ago, and now he's with the Nerds. He's a great IDP guy. I would ask some of those guys. I do know that your linebackers are pretty good. Mm-hmm. I know Jayon Brown's really good. Roquan Smith's good. I'm actually interested to hear Whitehead can do in Carolina. I also like Darnell Savage. So that's going to be interesting on the offensive side of the ball. I would definitely get rid of Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Keyshawn Johnson, Chris Thompson, just to name three right off the top of my head.
Yeah, Keyshawn was just a protected rookie that I drafted him last year in one of the last rounds, and last year was if he was either going to boom, he was going to boom last year of all years. So I think he's odd man out now.
Yeah, with Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella and DeAndre Hopkins and Larry Fitzgerald and Hakeem Butler, the odds of him doing something significant are slim and none. And that's a classic dynasty. That's a classic dynasty. I don't say mistake, but something people tend to do too much is just they just hold on too long. I mean, I like how smart and how quick you were to go like, yeah, I just didn't use him last year. It happens. But I would also say that in this format, again, that's why you want to be very in tune and keep a finger on the pulse of this roster because, you start stacking up all these young guys, you may not want to cut any of them. So and that might be a way to help this roster wind up with a better chance at a better draft pick in 2021. Other moves that you could do, you could also take some of those 17 draft picks and try to consolidate to maybe a team that doesn't have a lot and try to move some of those for veteran running backs. Okay. I think David Johnson's a name that people have probably soured on. Now, it sounds like these guys in your league are experienced owners. They're just not huge dynasty guys yet.
Mhm.
So maybe you have a guy who's been burnt by David Johnson before. Maybe you can get David Johnson for a second. Maybe you can get James Conner for a second. And at some point, you can kind of feel your way around the draft. Maybe you can figure out a move to where you draft where you draft Anthony McFarland and then trade for James Conner. It's, that way you lock up that Pittsburgh backfield. There's a lot of things you can do with that many picks, but I would definitely cut 3 or 4 guys and then look to consolidate. Hey, can I add a second to the 113 and move up to the 110? And maybe get a Rager or a CD Lamb. I don't think – if you're telling me 2 quarterbacks are going to fall in there, Lamb may be a pipe dream, but Jalen Rager may not be. Justin Jefferson may not be, if you can move up a couple spots.
Okay.
So certainly some things that you can do, but this is one where we'll have to be able to continue to attack it as the draft gets closer, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, all right, man. What else can I help you with before I get you out of here?
Nothing. I just finished up the 4th Patreon draft.
That was pretty cool. So I'm going to use you as just like a walking, talking advertisement for a second.
Okay.
For those that are listening that always hear me flap my gums about the Patreon at the start of the show, or at this point, they're probably burnt out on the testimonials of Kyle and Zach. What do you get out of the Patreon?
Just nonstop fantasy advice. It's great, even just seeing, because you don't always have certain trades that you're looking for, but it's also something that if you see somebody put out a trade, I've done this numerous times where I'm like, oh, I wonder if somebody would take that trade that this person just put in the chat, and I've gotten a trade that way. It's just really, really fun group of guys that I talk the same way with my friends that I've been in a home fantasy league with for 10, 15 years. Nothing's changed. It's just great advice and tips what to do, tips what not to do.
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I just want to add 2 things and I'll get you out of here. One, it's our tribe. It's a tribe. For those that know, I'm a fitness guy. I do powerlifting 2 days a week and I do CrossFit 4 days a week. And that's always been part of the allure of CrossFit. Like, I would have left, like, the overall exercises are fine and I like them, but I've always been like a bro gym guy. I'm worried about my peaks and my freaks, as Scott Steiner used to say back in the day. I'm bicep curls till I die. I still do bicep curls. Everybody else will be in there doing like bands and foam rolling, and I'm in the corner at the CrossFit gym doing curls. What of it? I've only got like 15s, 35s, and 50s, but sometimes you got to make chicken salad out of chicken scratch. But I wouldn't leave if it wasn't for the community. Some of my best friends right now are at that gym. I look forward to seeing them when I train with them. One of the guys, we power lift together 2 days a week. It's literally, and my wife used to use this term and I didn't get it until now, it's become our tribe. The Patreon is our tribe of people. They're from all over the world, and it's just like-minded people having a like-minded good time. And I appreciate you being one of our Patreons, and I appreciate you being bold enough to jump on to the very first ever Dynasty Warzone YouTube video. I apologize in advance for some of my choppy thought process and some of the choppy video. My crappy old school Pride t-shirt that I'm wearing on this live stream, it's going to take some getting used to, but I appreciate you jumping on, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I can tell you, the day that I joined the Patreon, you texted me saying, "Hey, when's a good time to give you a call to go over your teams?" So it's just something simple as that to make everything worth it.
It's not always about selling stuff. It's about helping people, and that's what we do here. We do it at the Contractor. We do it at the War Zone. So, but again, on behalf of Mr. Nick, I am Memphis, and remember, here at the Dynasty Happy Hour Contractor, the roster you have today isn't a life sentence. We can help you. We can fix it. Hit me up on Twitter at DFF Memphis, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.